Hi everyone, I'm Cédric, and today I'll be presenting scaling map elites to Deep Neuro-Evolution. So it's my summer project at UberAI when I was an intern, and it's joint work with Joost, Huizinga, Vashisht, Madhavan, and Clune. So in recent years, we've seen tremendous progress of optimization methods that leverage deep neural networks for a variety of problems. This was paired with an increased availability of standard benchmarks like the high dimensional control tasks based on a MuGECCO library, physics library, but also on the Atari Learning Ape, for example, and many more. There are many more examples. So whether they are SGT based, like the deep reinforcement learning methods, or black box like the evolution strategies, the modern optimization methods all leverage some sort of deep neural networks to implement high-dimensional controllers, and that's part of the reason of their success. So these methods are really promising, but they usually have some problems with hard exploration problems. So hard exploration can be because of sparse rewards, so there's no learning signal. It's really hard to find one. But it can also be about deceptive reward signals when the learning signal is kind of misleading. And we're going to focus on this kind. So in those problems, the path to success is not really a straight line. So there are toy problems that we can think of, like the mountain car problem, where the deceptive fitness is the distance between the car and the flag. So in that case, being closer does not mean that you're going to reach the flag. You first need to go backwards to gain momentum to climb the hill. In that kind of problem, if you just look for the goal, you're going to easily end up in that trap. So to answer these kind of problems, we can think of the problem in different ways. We can let fitness aside maybe. Instead of training one controller to solve one task, one can train many controllers and maximize some kind of behavioral diversity. So this is what the goal exploration processes and the novelty search family are doing. They kind of define this behavioral space. So the behavioral characterization can be maybe the final position of this car on the x-axis or the final xy position. So it's a low-dimensional characterization of the agent's trajectory. And once you have that, you might want to maximize diversity in that space, so train a population of solutions that are diverse. But in that case, you don't really care about fitness anymore. And although it's deceptive, the fitness might still convey some information about the task. So in the quality diversity family of algorithms, you will care about the two aspects. You want to generate the diversity of solutions, but you also want to optimize some kind of quality or performance measure. So in that domain, the famous algorithms are novelty search with local competition and map elites. The concept is the same. You generate diversity of solutions, and you have some kind of competition, but only locally. So you will make only the solutions that behave in a similar way compete with each other. So it's what's happening in nature. You don't see bacteria competing with giraffes for food. Only giraffes with I don't know, other giraffes or birds. I don't know. So it's been used to, for example, to evolve diverse robot morphologies to walk, to find efficient ways to walk. It's also been used to find diverse walking gaits for robots with the idea of being robust to potential damage afterwards. So usually these algorithms are based on genetic algorithms for optimization, which work by computing mutations of the controllers and then performing some kind of selection. So this usually works only in low-dimensional problems. And there was a recent attempt to scale this kind of algorithm to high-dimensional neural networks, and it was shown successful for networks in the Atari games, for example. But it kind of failed to scale to the high-dimensional control tasks of the MuGECCO suite. In parallel, there was some kind of attempts to scale evolution strategies by Salimans et al. And here it works on the two kind of problems. So evolution strategies, they do compute some kind of estimation of the gradient and seem to be more efficient to optimize high-dimensional controllers. So if we recap, we have on one side quality diversity, algorithm that learn to generate a collection of diverse and high-performing behaviors, but they kind of have trouble scaling to high-dimensional controllers. On the other side, we have ES, which can scale easily to high-dimensional controllers, but might be susceptible to deception, and also is usually used to train one controller for one task. So you're seeing me coming right now, I guess. What we are trying to do is to take one quality diversity algorithm like MapElite and scale it to deep neural networks, to deep neuroevolution. So we will take MapElite and power it by ES, basically. So the first steps in that direction were made by a paper called Novelty, presenting an algorithm that is novelty search based on ES. So ES, as we said, is able to train high-dimensional controllers, like making this humanoid work, for example, and it works well when the gradient of performance is not deceptive. But what they did in the NSES paper is to embody that deception by a wall. You put a wall in front of the agents. In that case, it is deceptive. If you just maximize your distance on the x-axis, you will encounter the wall. And here is found to get stuck in the wall. So just like NS proposed to put fitness aside and deal about novelty, NSES is replacing the fitness objective of ES by a novelty objective, still using ES for optimization. So agents will learn how to go in areas of the behavioral space where no agent has been before. But here again, as in NS, we have the problem that there is no information about the task anymore. So if it's an open-ended world when we can generate diversity infinitely, it's never going to find the good behaviors, right? So they propose NSR-ES, which is novelty search and reward ES. You combine the two, so you average the fitness and novelty objective, and this will lead to explore, but in the direction of the gradient of performance. They also proposed NSR-AES, that's where it's an adaptive version where you will kind of tune the weights between novelty and fitness on the way during training. So now let's look at MapElite with ES. So as any quality diversity algorithm, here we want to build a behavioral repertoire of high-performing and diverse solutions. So the first thing to do is to define what the space in which diversity is going to be computed, the behavioral space, the behavioral characterization of agents' trajectories. So in the case of a maze, it can be the final 2D position, as we said. Then you need to define behavioral niches, behavioral cells. So in that case, you can just discretize that space. It's easy. So then you first initialize the map. So you take a random controller, and you evaluate it. And then you pick the controller that's there. You compute random mutations of it, which is called the pseudo offspring cloud. And from those, you're going to compute the ES update. Then you evaluate that resulting controller, the child controller, and you find its PC, its performance, and now you can consider whether you should add it to the map or not. So in that case, there are two rules. Either it falls into a new cell, so it's kind of exploration here. You found a new behavior, basically. So in that case, you want to keep it. And the second thing is, if it falls in a cell that is already filled, then you might want to perform higher. So it's kind of a local competition inside of that behavioral cell. So in that case, it falls into a new cell, we keep it. And then you just repeat those steps. So you pick a new controller, pick a new cell with a new controller, and repeat the process. And hopefully you will cover the map of behaviors, one controller per cell, and hopefully you will end up by finding the goal here. So MapElite, the traditional one based on genetic algorithm, works kind of the same way. The only difference is in the way the updates is computed. So as we said, we pick a cell, we have a parent controller. In ES, we need to compute a whole offspring cloud to compute just the child that will be considered as a candidate for map addition. In GA, we just compute one update, one mutation of that controller, and we evaluate it and consider it as a candidate for map addition. So we see that for a given budget of episodes, you will have many more candidates for map additions in the map edit based on MEGA version than you have in the MEES. So we're considering 3 variants of MES depending on the objective that we use for the ES updates. The first one is, the obvious one, is MES exploits. So in that case, you do ES updates towards performance. So you have a directed exploitation, you follow gradient steps toward performance, but you also have an undirected exploration because you still have this map addition role. So you keep controllers that fall into new cells. So it's kind of a undirected exploration. So on the other side, you have MES explore. Here you will optimize, do gradient steps towards exploration, towards diversity. But you still have some kind of local competition rule inside of each cell. So you still have some kind of undirected local performance search. Now, if we look at MES explore exploits, in our case, we don't do like NSR, so we don't average the two objectives into one. So we don't couple exploration and exploitation. We use either the exploration objective or the exploitation objective. So we have directed exploration or directed exploitation. We decouple the two. So it's the same dynamic as the one we saw before. The difference here is that you have those lines, those colored lines that link the new controller added to the map to its parents, its stepping stone. You see that most of the discovery here are made in green, so through exploration steps. I don't know if you saw that, but the last one was made by the exploitation. So usually exploitation leads directly to the trap, but when you found a way around, it becomes useful again. So now let's look at experiments. So we look at 2 different applications. The first one is damage adaptation. So we first fill behavioral maps of different working gaits, and then we look at how we can find good recovery controllers in case of a damage. The second application is exploration. So in that case, you have a deceptive gradient towards the goal, but you don't want to just get stuck into this thing. So you need to explore a bit everywhere, and you're doing this in a high-dimensional control task. So it's even difficult to learn how to work. So first, damage adaptation. Here we have 2 phases. The first one is to fill a behavioral map. So find different working gaits. To do that, we need a behavioral characterization that is able to express the diversity of gaits. So in that case, we use one that was already used in the past. So it's 4-dimensional, and so it's the proportion of time over the time of the episode that each of the leg is in contact with the floor. So if it does move, it's in contact 100% of the time for all of the legs, and so on. So you fill the behavioral map with our MES algorithm. Once we have that, there is the second phase, damage adaptation. So now you have a damaged environment where maybe one of the joints cannot be controlled anymore. So in that case, we just used the map-based Bayesian optimization algorithm that was first proposed in the first map edit paper. And basically, the idea is that you use a Gaussian process to model the performance in the damaged environments as a function of the behavioral characterization in your map. So you first initialize this model with the behavioral map, and then you will evaluate some of the controllers in the damaged environments and adapt, update your model basically, in order to find a good recovery controller for the damaged environment. So if we first look at what's inside the behavioral map, once we've trained it, we see that there are, so this is the cell coverage. So how many cells were found in the map? We see that map edit based on genetic algorithm, the traditional one, MEGA, discover many more cells. And this is because of what I said earlier. So it considers many more candidates for map additions for a given budget of episodes. When you look at MES, you see what's intuitive, that the more exploration you have, the more cells you discover. If we look at performance, we see a totally different picture. Here, MEGA or MES explore, so when you don't do directed exploitation with gradients, you don't find any successful controllers. You don't even learn how to walk. On the opposite, when you use directed exploitation, whether you do this only or whether you also do some kind of directed exploration, you will find high-performing behaviors. So this is what it looks like. So first you have a good controller before the damage. Then you have a range of damage. Can be one joint, can be one leg, can be two legs. And then you perform the recovery, the adaptation procedure of phase 2, and you find good recovery controllers from the controllers saved in the map. So you see that even with two legs broken, you still find walking behavior. So the paper presents this for a variety of damage and across different seeds. Yeah, just check the paper. Second application is exploration. So we reuse the deceptive humanoid environment from the NSES paper. And we use the maze environment where you have a little ant that you need to control to go around the first trap and then around the second to find the goal here. With so the fitness, the deceptive fitness, that is the distance to that goal. So first, humanoid deceptive environments. If you use only exploitation, you will also get stuck in the trap. So even though you record controllers that fell into new cells, it's not exploring enough. So the end-directed exploration of doing this is not enough. If you do only exploration, you will find ways to explore the behavioral map, but you're not interested in fitness at all, so you don't have any reason, any incentive to go towards the gradient of performance that is on the right. If we do both, so that exploration and then exploitation and so on, you will explore but also exploit in the right direction. So you can see exploration on 90 degrees and also going forward. So if we look at these results across seeds, so this is what I said, only exploration or only exploitation does not work. Doing the two decoupled does work. And in that case, NSRES, which is mixing the two objectives, does work. So you can find good controllers because the gradient of performance that points on the right, to the right, you can explore kind of in that cone. You can explore on the way of the performance gradient, and it's going to be enough to go around the wall. So in that case, the two gradients are kind of aligned. Now, if we look at the end maze, if we do only exploitation, it's not going to work at all as well. Now, if we do exploration, since this is a closed environment, it's going to end up by exploring everything and find the goal. And if we do the two, it's also going to find the goal. So it's decoupled exploration and exploitation. So the exploration alone would be enough, but the exploitation part is not is actually helping. So if we look at the performance across seeds, as we can see, so the difference with before is that now if you couple exploration and exploitation into a same objective, here it's not going to work because the gradient of performance is also pointing towards the goal here, but the exploration gradient is going to point upwards as soon as this first room is filled with behaviors. So in that case, the two gradients are not really aligned, and it's going to be a trouble for ES to optimize this. So it's going to get stuck. So in that case, if you do pure exploration, you're going to eventually find the goal. And if you decouple the two, it's going to work as well. So as long as you pure exploration at some point, it's going to work. So in that case, NSR AES will have to tune the weights slowly up to full exploration to actually find the goal. So the way to tune that schedule can be a little tricky. We give some hints about that in the paper. So now maybe a bit of related work. There are two works that are really close to what we do. The first one is map-based multi-policy reinforcement learning. So in that work, they kind of do map edits based on reinforcement learning. And it's in a sense, it's close to what we do with MES exploit, because we only use the gradient of performance here. We never do exploration explicitly. We just kind of count on the fact that the learning algorithm is kind of unstable, and so we'll eventually go in new places, and with the map addition, we will keep those controllers. But as we saw in our deceptive application problem, it's not enough when the problem is really deceptive. The second work is CMA-ME, so it's kind of a parallel work where they use CMA-yes in their case. So they look at different applications. They don't look at deceptive problems, and they don't look at damage recovery, but they look at multiplayer game, like Hearthstone. I think it's a multiplayer game. And they don't have really novelty objective that looks explicitly for diversity, although they have some kind of exploration mechanism as well. It's a really interesting paper. Yeah, check it out. Okay, about future work, there are 2 points that we can discuss. The first one is maybe we should find a way to automatize the exploration-exploitation trade-off. In our case, we decouple exploration and exploitation, but we just do this in a round-robin fashion, one after the other. And maybe it would be interesting to find ways to intelligently adapt which one we should be doing at any time during training. I know there are some people in the reinforcement learning community that are trying to work on that, and I think it's pretty interesting. The second point is that maybe we should do some more sample reuse. So for each ES update, we kind of compute the whole offspring cloud of solutions, and just to compute one update, one child controller that will be considered for map addition. So maybe we should reuse all those controllers trained, evaluated during the offspring update. So there are 2 ways to do that. Either you use it for subsequent ES updates. So this is there are already some works on that. But the second idea would be maybe to use different updates with different objectives. Maybe you could have one fitness objective, one novelty objective, one half-half, 2/3, 1/3, or one even evolvability objective. And based on the same offspring cloud, you would compute different updates and then consider each of those updates as potential additions for the map. So with not really significant extra costs of computing, you could probably increase diversity in your behavioral map, and that would be interesting to try. So to conclude, we presented the MapElites version of MapElites based on evolution strategies. So it now scales to high-dimensional neural networks as controllers. We looked at 2 applications. We saw it was useful to build high-quality behavioral repertoires that could be used for damage adaptation, like in the traditional use of MapElites. And we also look at solving hard exploration problems that are also high-dimensional control problems. So these kind of problems are really, really hard to solve for reinforcement learning. I mean, I have no idea of work targeting this kind of thing. Yeah, you would probably need hierarchical reinforcement learning algorithms to solve this. So this is quite interesting that we can target those types of tasks with our new MapElites based on evolution strategies algorithm. Thank you very much for your time and attention.